Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Uncensored Critic podcast. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. It means the world to me. Thank you very, very much. Today, we welcome along the fantastic actress that is Cassandra Woodhouse. And let's take a moment to introduce her. Cassandra trained at Casting Hot House with, I'm going to say this wrong. How do you say this, Cassandra? Is it Jami Rudovsky?
Oh, you've got me. I think so.
Okay, cool. Right, let's go with that. Sorry, mate, if you're listening. Jeremy Rudovsky and Diane Castle at the Imagine Life studio. Her credits include the short film Every Little Thing, directed by John Harris, the web series The Eggplant, Chloe, and by Halo Productions. For TV, Filthy Rich, Season 2, Shortland Street with South Pacific Pictures, Outrageous Fortune, Tall Poppies, the lead role, and The Almighty Johnson, Season 3. For theatre, she is a regular performer at the Dolphin Theatre in New Zealand. Her credits include at the Dolphin as well as other places, The Doll's House, The Women Down Under, Crimes of the Heart, Time Stands Still, Persuasion, and Country House, and not one but two one-woman shows, HANNA by Sam Potter and Prima Facie by Suzie Miller, for which she just finished a tour of New Zealand and which she went up and down the country talking about this amazing play and doing this amazing play rather about how brilliant it is and how justice needs to be done for sexual assault victims and how we can make a real difference. But we'll get onto that in just a moment. In the meantime, hello, Cassandra.
Hello. Oh gosh, you're gonna make me emotional. Yeah. Just hearing that, yeah.
It's quite a career you've had. It's great.
Oh, just the journey of the recent ones have yeah, they're very close to my heart. So it's nice to be able to talk about it.
Absolutely. But we'll get
Yeah.
on to all things one woman shows and everything in just a moment. But in the meantime, where did it come from, the love of acting? Where did it start for you?
Oh, it's interesting because these shows I've just done, the one woman shows and touring them around the country, I've gone back to places where I grew up, and so it's given me the opportunity to actually revisit some of my old schools. And we moved around a lot, but I was able to visit some of them, and the little girl in me remembered actually sometimes. Oh, that's right, you did theatre here, and I think that some memories that were forgotten came back to me, but. Look, my whole life, I think as a child, I was, always, on wanting to be on stage. I think it's actually more, probably the revelation of why I do it is coming to me more now than it did when I was little. I just knew I loved to express myself and I love to tell stories, and I think empathy really, like
Mm.
I wanted to, I liked being able to express myself, and I liked through storytelling being able to uh, uh, you know tell stories that allowed other people to feel things. I think that's been a big calling for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Was there like a specific performance that you remember seeing, like as a kid, that made you think, "Oh wow, how are they doing that?" And I want to get involved in that.
Oh, Titanic as a teenager moved me so much.
Yeah.
I feel like there should be some more epic films that I would say, but eh, anything that just, I think, whatever film, whatever play, wherever it is, I said this to someone the other night. We were at a show, and I said, your heart is moved where it's moved. You can't, you can't say to your heart, well, okay, I'm going to be more moved by this thing because so and so made it and it was da 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 da. Your heart is moved where it's moved, and so I think anything along the way that moved my heart was what I loved. And yeah, Titanic. I'm a big romantic, so I guess
Mm.
Titanic hit
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
Yeah. But just, yeah, I just all the great actresses. I just love watching their work, and um, yeah.
It's good,
Mm.
isn't it? It's very good.
There's nothing like it. Mm.
Yeah, I remember just with Titanic actually, I grew up watching it. I've seen it quite a lot now, but it's one of those films where I just feel like you could, just as soon as you start watching it, like some things you like you can watch bits and pieces and then come out of it and be like, oh cool, I'll watch that bit later. But that's one of those films I feel like as soon as you start watching it, you're in it, and then you can't stop until
Mm.
you're out of it. Like it hooks you in. It's got that quality, and there's so many. Oh God, there's so many moments where like the soundtrack of everything, where people are going down on the lifeboats and people waving goodbye to
Oh,
husbands, fathers, knowing that in their heart they might not see them again and stuff. And it's like, oh my word, it's that.
yeah, it was just so poignant, you know. And I remember I bought the CD back then, and I remember watching the film so many times. And then I remember buying the CD and coming home and playing it from start to finish, like you're saying, and laying on my bed and closing my eyes, and through just the soundtrack, could re-watch the whole movie in my mind from the soundtrack. And yeah, like you said, there was just so many stories within that story, and
Mm,
yeah.
yeah. To answer a social media trend now, was there enough space on the door, do you think?
Oh God. I'm sure there was.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Maybe,
I'm sure
maybe
there was.
I think that might have been a flaw in the thing. They could have made that just a tiny little bit smaller. But
Yeah,
then,
yeah,
but
yeah.
then, and then there's ever since then, when it came out in, is it 1997? I think it came out. But ever since people are going, the door was big enough for two people. And it's like, oh, and I've just added fuel to that fire now, haven't I? But yeah.
You reckon though, do you think though that that's people um we have a tendency as humans to do that, to move to make it about something else so we don't have to feel so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
And some people, maybe that's come from people who the film really affected, and they don't want people to know about it, so they dive their
Yeah, so
attention onto something else. Yeah, interesting. I never
focusing
thought.
on something trivial like that, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way. No, that's interesting.
Yeah, maybe it's a bit of a distraction. Who knows?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, good. So let's talk about your training. So you obviously I mentioned in the intro you did some training at the Casting Hot House and the Imagine Life studio. What was it like, sort of really discovering your craft?
Well, I've done, I never really felt a call to go to a traditional drama school. I looked into the ones here, and they nothing really resonated with me. So I chose my own path of really seeking out teachers, and I went to LA and did some stuff over there. And I still work with Diana Castle, who you mentioned at the Imagine Life studio in LA. When COVID hit, her classes went online, so I was able to jump on her Zoom classes, and have done for, I've been in those for about the last 5 years. And so I've always thought, I've did Meisner, and I've done lots of different things. And so I just really sought out working with teachers through that interested me and that resonated. And Diana has really stuck. She mentors me on the shows that I do, especially HANNA and Prima Facie. She's been an amazing coach for me in those shows, as well as having great directors as well. But she has transformed my work in terms of it is she really hones you as an artist versus, she tries to get rid of all the actor stuff, and really works on the humanity of who you are and what you bring. And it's become quite a spiritual practice to me now,
Yeah.
because of her. And yeah, and like I say, I'm still in class with her every week. I've stayed in class with her whilst doing these shows, and it's just yeah, it's an amazing experience. And I feel like yeah, she's definitely been the most transformative in my career. And yeah,
Yeah.
big fan.
What, so you mentioned that this like spiritual practice of it. What is the spiritual side of it to you?
Well, I think uh there's obviously, technique. Not that she teaches a technique, she'd kill me for saying that, but like there's obviously all that part of, that part of it. But there's, I think, one of the big things she teaches that has just resonated with me so much is just um finding your mission in a story. So whatever your the beautiful sun coming in,
And oh
uh
yeah,
ah,
you've seen
the
that.
beautiful, finding mission in every story that you tell. So finding the purpose of the calling of that story. And I know we'll get into Prima Facie, but it when you start to see your work in that sense and you go, okay, this story is about something way bigger than me. What is the human story here? What is the part of me that needs to be expressed through the story, which is a very human, it's a human experience that I'm telling. And it just basically takes away all, how do I learn my lines? How do I, become a character? It's just like, how do I find that part in me and express it? And so yeah, spiritually, I think I say spiritual, and I know that could mean a lot to different people, but I think just the calling of it and really finding the mission and the heart of the stories that you get to tell, and just as an artist, I mean, as a it's just deepened my respect for this art form when we tell stories that allow people to feel seen and less alone, which is at the root of every story. We're telling somebody's story. The profound impact that has just changed my life, and yeah, and the choices I make with the roles I want to play and things I want to produce and stuff.
Yeah, no, and you said something about getting rid of all the actor stuff, which is something I definitely picked up on because when I was at drama school and stuff, you go there feeling like you have to live the moment, you have to do this, you have to. It's almost like coming from a place of, well, this is only my experiences anyway. I'm not sure if this is the same for you, but you feel like you have to get to it, you have to feel something, you have to really like deliver things, like, and then you sort of becomes like a rhythm in a way, and you're not actually living reality, because in reality we don't really think about like how we're delivering it. We just talk like just like we're doing now, but for some reason when we pick up a script, we're just like to use Prima Facie's example, it's like thoroughbreds, every single one. Okay, no, you sound like a robot there. So it's like so thoroughbreds, every single one, and it's if you find that natural bouncy sort of rhythm in the way that we speak as well. That's something I discovered as well. But when you say like getting rid of like the actor stuff, so what did you think you had to sort of let go that was too actory, do you think?
Well, like I think exactly what you're saying, like performing, thinking you have to perform something rather than be it. So you pulled a line from Prima Facie, for example, that may be the line, but beyond that line is a world of content that's actually where you need to that's where your work is. One word, thoroughbreds, contains a whole world. Just as we do in life, one word. If I said to you, Jolie, one word, that's my daughter. So that one word encompasses a whole world of a person who I love, who I've got feelings about, who I could tell you how she smells, and I could tell you a world about that one word. And so it's the same thing, like thoroughbreds. Okay, that's the word. And Diana's teaching is beautiful in that you absorb a story. You read a story, you take it in, and I think Meryl Streep was is quoted as saying the same thing of, and then you put it aside, and you get that initial feeling of, as we do when we read a novel, and but allowing your imagination to just fill that world for you, and not to jump ahead, but that's ultimately how you learn lines, is because you create the world. So then when you go back to put that one word thoroughbred over the world that you've created around what a thoroughbred is, and in terms of the legal world and you've got a whole world to hold that one word on. Do you know what I'm trying? Does that make any sense?
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
Look, clearly not a teacher, but I
It's well explained.
well, yeah. So you asked what I had to let go. Look, and it's a constant, but I don't know about you, but I feel like there's a real movement towards performances being more authentic. I don't know if you're seeing that, but I definitely am. And then the contrast when perhaps we see things where actors are more performative and some aren't. And so when we see them together, it's quite you see the contrast. And so I think, look, it's definitely it's a work in progress for me. I'm constantly working on trying to just drop any performance tendencies and my idea of what it should be, and actually just being it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that thing of like, at the end of the day, it's still you up there playing this character. Like, you are the character. It's a version of you that's unlived or unknown to you. And that's the work of like tapping into that and then expressing it,
Yeah.
versus, okay, well, this is something I've got to put on me and become something else. And yeah, so it's a work in progress, but that's been a big thing, like yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's,
and for film stillness.
exactly. Like,
That's so expressive. I'm like, ah.
yeah, but yeah, no, like you say, like we're living this. Suddenly, you come into this experience, like, and suddenly you're going, oh, wait, how am I in this body exactly? How did I get here? And you're like, you actually realize it's actually a lot easier than you think. As soon as you drop all this performance, like bravado, like you have to be like this grand storyteller. It's like, well, actually, no, you don't.
And it's quite,
Never got.
it's that simple thing of like, what do you hear? And again, to quote Diana, but a big thing she teaches is what is the opportunity here? Is it like, are you here to, she uses this and she's got an amazing CD on, I think you can get it on iTunes or something, but
Mm,
it's called Audition versus Opportunity. And she talks a lot about, are you going to an audition? Are you going to speak to the doctor to save your son's life? Like,
mm,
and that makes you walk into a room so different. Like, if that's what the story was, for example,
yeah,
are you going in there to compare yourself to every other actor that's in there and, oh God, all the actor concerns?
yeah,
Or are you going into the waiting room to save your son's life and talk to the doctor? Like, what are you there to do? And then that automatically takes away, what am I, how should I say this, or what should I, what I'm trying to say?
mm,
Yeah. Just what are
absolutely.
you, as a human being, what are you in this situation to do or to share or to get, or, you know.
Yeah, I think that's a good one as well because it's sort of if you were playing a character like that, where someone is in the hospital or something, it gets you to that sort of place actually, which that image and such. Like you're talking about words and how that words like becomes an image, and that image is something that you like to, that you feel something like you were talking about your daughter, like, and suddenly and like what they look like, and the smells, the how it feels like if you hold a hand or something like that, but but with something like that, either gets you in that place of like, okay, like the stakes are really high. But I just thought on the flip side, it's like when you go into audition, you think you might not be playing that character, but it could be something completely different. So you go, you're going to this thing, just chill out. So you're not in this dire position here right now. You can go in there and just enjoy it. This is a privilege to be here. So the stakes might not be very high, like if you were doing that in your real life, but you can go in there and think it's actually a lot easier than doing that. Does that make sense? It sort of like takes the
It
relief of
does,
it.
it does, but I guess
Yeah.
it depends on the story that you're going into audition for. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like, if you're going, depending on what the role is, maybe maybe it's not a story that calls for you to be calm and appreciative of the moment and the opportunity. Maybe it does call for you to be quite anxious and worried about what's going to happen, because the outcome might be dire to the story you're telling. So
mm,
again, I think it's putting it into the story. You know what I mean? Whatever
mm,
we might be feeling, maybe even if you're anxious, it's like, okay, well, where is the anxiety in the story?
mm.
You know, um, like, um, yeah, I'm just, obviously, because the play is so fresh in my mind, but uh, you know, uh, getting yourself on stage every night, is no small feat when you're out there by yourself. But
Mm.
to those nerves, I'm like, well, hang on, if I entering the courtroom to defend to defend someone, I would be nervous doing that as well. So it's the same, you know, it's natural, and it's, putting it into the story, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
Yeah.
let's so yeah, you mentioned there you're talking about like the one person shows that you've done. Before we get into Prima Facie, you've done another one woman show, which of course was Hannah by
Mm.
I've forgotten her name already, Sam Potter. And
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, unfortunately. I'd love to. I'd love to read it. But if anyone who hasn't seen it, the basic synopsis is a mum is given the wrong baby at birth and finds out that the child and finds out when the child is 3 years old. Now her real parents want to meet. And as soon as I read that, I thought, what?
I
What?
know.
And I thought that's insane. Yeah, I mean, feel free to, if you want to spoil it, just let you know, guys. We might touch on some spoilers today, so just so you know. But yeah, yeah, what's Hannah? What is the journey of that?
Oh, oh, it's a beautiful story. Again, a UK playwright. Yeah, a story of a mother's love, really, and what someone does when their whole world is just flipped upside down. And it raises questions around nature versus nurture. Like,
Mm,
so in the story, she has raised her daughter till she was 3 before she found out that the babies were switched at birth. So by 3 years old, you've formed a real attachment to the
mm,
child that you've raised.
mm,
So it raises questions around how we love who we love. And the other mother as well has, formed an enormous attachment to the child she's raised as well. And so um, it raises questions around economic privilege and, how money helps these situations. And sadly, this young mum didn't have the resources to fight things, and she didn't have not only the financial resources, but she didn't have the upbringing I think that was actually one of the things that really touched me about the story was just she didn't come from an upbringing that I actually had a young girl who came to the show, and she came up to me afterwards and she said, I really loved it, but she really bothered me. And I was like, can I ask you why? And she said, well, I just felt like she should have just sort of, done this and this and this and this. And I said, the one that makes me, I'm happy because I feel like you're telling me this because you've been brought up in an environment where you've been raised that you've got a voice, you've got options when and I said, would that be correct? And she was like, yeah. And I said, well, this girl didn't have that. She wasn't raised by someone saying, well, if something goes wrong, you can fight it, or, she didn't have any of, she didn't even really know what a lawyer was. She just thought they only existed on TV, and, so she was very naive. And so when she was faced with this, she had to really learn to find herself and her strength and her voice, and she did. And but she goes on a bit of a journey before she does. And
mm.
but yeah, it's a beautiful story, and it resonated with so many people. And it was sadly it's another thing that's actually quite common, babies being switched at birth.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's still happening, and we think it doesn't, but it does. And the amount
Mm,
of people who had some sort of story about this or some experience of it blew my mind, that it was more common than we realize. And but even it really touched adoptive parents, and children that had been adopted, or and now with DNA testing, so much more is coming out. So
mm.
it's wild to think how much goes on now. But yeah, it was very heartfelt, and I think at the core of it really is about a mother's love and how we love who we love. And because it was the question of, can we switch them back? Do you just switch them back? How do you, but after I think particularly in this story, because after 3 years, how do you do that,
Mm.
when that child knows you as mum? And yeah.
Yeah, how is that possible? I mean, is it just like, but how? Yeah, yeah, how's
How
it
did it
possible?
happen? Or,
No, but like baby switching, how's that? How does it
well,
happen?
in this case, it was an alcoholic nurse.
Oh,
So, and both and both babies had jaundice, so they were taken from their mothers and put in a like incubators for their jaundice, and then the nurse thought they looked lonely, so she put them in together, and then
And,
yeah,
and then the wrong
and
one got, and then
wrong one
the
got
wrong
given
got
back.
sent back to the, oh my God.
Yeah. And the nurse had cut the name tags off because she thought, so that babies could get more light on their skin, and like it's crazy. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Did
um,
I know it's a one woman show, but was there ever a moment where you got to play the nurse at any point, or
oh yeah, it was definitely, yeah, I played, you voiced the other mother, you voiced the uh her husband who yeah, he he plays a big part in it. The father of the baby, and yeah, so there's definitely you play same with Prima Facie, you play other characters within when you're telling the story become. But someone asked me about that, but we do it in life, like if I said to you, oh, my daughter just said this to me, and we mimic people. And so I think with one person shows there's a bit of that goes on, where we jump into being the person, and then we jump back into what we're saying, and so
yeah,
a lot of that. But yeah, there was the opportunity to play the nurse.
yeah. Was there ever a moment where Hannah says to the nurse, like, how how could you do that? How dare you?
Oh yeah.
Well, first of all, you're drunk at work and you're in the baby ward. That in itself is sacrilege. But then you switch the babies around, and now my daughter of 3 years is now being taken away from me is somebody else's, and my actual daughter has is living with somebody else. And it's like, was there ever a moment where you said Hannah got the opportunity to say to the nurse, how, like, A, why, B, how, and how dare you?
Well, not directly to the nurse, but
Oh, okay.
I think but she had to sit down with the social workers and the hospital, and who speak on behalf of the nurse, and uh, and they had their reasons, but yeah, she does get to voice how she feels at times, and again, that's to the audience, and um yeah, a big part of a one person show is who the audience is to you. And in that story, who was the audience? And we crafted this one to be similar to like a support group of perhaps people who had been through traumatic things, and maybe each week, someone had shared their story, and Hannah had been brave. Hannah had, listened, and this week had decided it was her time to tell her story, and that's how we sort of crafted that. But so yeah, as she's telling the audience that she does get the chance to sort of, well, why didn't But and it's that thing of finding those things in the moment as a character. You're finding those things in the moment of, hang on, how did that happen? And
Mm.
because yeah. I'm blubbering, but yeah.
No, 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 not at all, not
Yeah,
at
yeah.
all.
No, she does. She gets, because she relives it all, and through reliving it, she feels the injustice and feels, you know,
Mm.
she gets a chance to say what she wants to say. And
Oh, good, good. Well,
yeah.
she has that moment, yeah, which is good.
But a lot of regret because she didn't get to say it at the time, So it's,
Yeah, yeah,
as we all do in life when we want to say things and we don't say it when we want to say it. And
yeah.
we think
It's like your
years.
brain gives you that information like 3 days later, or three years later or something, and you go, "Why didn't I say that?
Yeah,
That,
yeah, yeah.
that was perfect. Why
Yeah.
didn't you think of that at the time?" Like, you're just like,
Yeah.
"Okay,
'Cause I
be
think
quicker
half the
next
time
time."
too. And half the time too, we're not expecting it. We don't walk around expecting things like that to happen. So
Yeah, yeah,
we're
yeah.
not hard for those quick fire responses of, what we should do and say.
Mm. Am I right in thinking that when you did the Hannah, when you performed it, did you have your daughter at the time?
I did. She's nearly 15. So I did, yeah. She was about 12, 11 or 12 when I did that. So yeah, so I was a mother,
Yeah,
which
how was that, putting yourself in Hannah's shoes, and bringing all your experiences as a mum yourself?
Yeah, it's look, to revert back to what we were talking about before about finding ourselves in, finding the characters within ourselves. Obviously, our personal lives give us sometimes easier access to
Mm,
parts of ourselves.
yeah,
So because I was a mother, I had access to, the love and what it's like to be a mum and all those, or, I didn't have to work so hard at creating the world of so many of the things in the story because I am a mum, and I could imagine like it was all very easy for me for that and that reason. But at the same time, I'd never been through what she'd been through, so
yeah,
yeah, I think sometimes too. Sometimes I would see my daughter in this, in my imagination, and then sometimes that actually isn't helpful, because I think, and again, my amazing mentor would share this, that our imagination can take things so much further than what our real life can.
oh yes, oh yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So, obviously being a mum helped me get to certain places, but my imagination took it a lot further than I would have
yeah,
taken. I'd tried to just use my own life, but yeah, it definitely made it more accessible. And motherhood is very dear to me and very something I'm very passionate about, and it's been the best experience of my life. So it was very, very. I think that's why I really, wanted to tell that story as well.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, you reminded me of someone when I was at drama school. Someone told me, I don't know if you've had this experience. Someone said when you're creating a character, there's like he used this analogy. You've got like three boxes in front of you. The one on your left is full of experiences which you're happy to share, or you can create imaginary scenarios for yourself and live them. The second one is something that's more personal, which you are happy to share, but you know that this is quite it's quite tricky stuff to talk about, but and you've got to make sure you get yourself in that zone and make sure you look after yourself and say, I'm happy to talk about this. And then in the
yeah,
third box is stuff like, no, I'm not sharing these things. Those things are private to me, that no one else needs to know that. So
yeah.
I would imagine that was a lot of, but your experiences of a mum and everything and HANNA and everything, did that come from the second box? So a lot of stuff that you were happy to share about things, but there was a limit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, yeah, yeah, I guess so. And you're limit, and in saying that, you're, like I just said, you're limited of where you can take it, because
Yeah,
you you know in a way sometimes it's easier to create a new reality for yourself under those circumstances, because my imagination could take that so much further than my lived experience with my child. You know what I'm, you know what I
yeah,
mean? So,
yeah, for sure.
I mean, I could, and I'm not going to lie, there were moments when when I would think, oh my God, imagine that actually being my daughter, and that, and then, because it can deepen things when you need it. And we pull from so many different things,
Mm,
but then again, sometimes you go, oh, it's not resonating tonight, or it's not landing the same. So you try something else. And but yeah, I think it's a bit of a mix of two, but um, yeah, I don't think, I think there's a big misconception that we have to use our personal life
mm,
to create.
yeah. I suppose
If
like
anything,
there's a limit, isn't there? Because you don't want to do too much because then you don't want to hurt yourself or like bring up too much stuff
yeah, it can
that
be
you
really
don't.
re-traumatizing, or
Yeah,
in that story, I didn't want to build trauma around my child that hadn't happened. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I think the thing that it does do, and I guess this is back to the sort of the spirituality of it, is it opens your world up to that subject matter in the world. Like I would be at the mall and looking at children, and just, I was like, oh my gosh, that, like you just find yourself in that world. And I would look at children like they were the child in the story, and
Mm.
it's just simply because that was the world I had created. It's like when you're reading a book or when you binged a series, you're like, oh my God, it's like that. You see it around you because you've created it. And yeah. But yeah, I don't think it's healthy to re-traumatize,
No,
to.
no, no. It's just keep yourself safe in the meantime,
Absolutely,
look
yeah,
after
yeah,
yourself. Yeah. And
yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's a very good segue into Prima Facie. But yeah, that's quite
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, anyway, it's a very good sort of way into it, really. So, for anyone who hasn't seen the show, I've talked about it a fair bit on here, so please do check out the other episodes, guys. That'd be great. Yeah, so Prima Facie is about a young lawyer called Tessa. She gets into the bar, she is doing brilliantly in her job, and she meets someone called Julian, who they have a little sort of fling with. And unfortunately, one night something absolutely awful happens to her, and she is abused by Julian. And the rest of the play is her fighting for justice for not only what happened to her, but for any women, as they say in the play, the one in three of who have been victims of this awful, awful, awful thing. And it's a hard topic to talk about, but it's an absolutely wonderful play written by Suzie Miller. And anyone who is currently in cinemas again now, I'm not sure if it's around the world or anything now, but if you get the chance, guys, go and see it. Jodie Comer is fantastic in it. And yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful piece. And I implore everyone to go and see it, not only for the show, the writing, but also the message behind it as well. So, anyway, how did you come across Prima Facie? When was the first time you heard of it?
Okay. Well, so I had just done the play we were talking about, Hannah, and that
Yeah.
was a one-woman show, obviously, and I had toured it around New Zealand. And being my first experience with a solo show, I hadn't been through that before, so I didn't know how to look after myself as much as I should have in terms of my nervous system and things like that. So I was a little rattled by the end of it. I'm not going to lie.
Mm.
And I so once I was done, I was quite. It actually went on longer than I'm saying, but anyway, I had finished a run. I had finished a season at one particular venue, and I was so desperate to just see somebody else do something, whatever it was. And I was scrolling through, the local cinema, and like, what's on, what's on, and our local cinema here was showing National Theatre Live, and I saw, oh, okay, there's this one woman show, and I was like, I knew nothing about it.
Mm.
And at that point, I was such a nervous wreck that I was like, I'm never going to do a one-person show again. It's too hard. You're up there by yourself. It's just too hard. And and I can get into this more, but I've produced and self-funded both of these shows as well. So
Yes. Yeah, we'll get into that.
there's, when I say it took a toll, it's not just the actor in me.
Yeah,
It's,
you did everything. You did everything.
yeah. So when I say I was worn out, it was a bit of burnout from from all of that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I saw I was like, okay, I was like, I didn't know who Jodie was. I didn't know about the play. But I just was like, oh, it's a one-person show. Yay, I get to go watch somebody else do what I've just done. And yay. I'll remind you that I was at that point, I will never do a one-person show again. Anyway, I went and sat by myself in the theatre and was just, as everybody has been by seeing this show, so moved. And I was just in absolute awe of everything. I was so, all I can say is something happened in that cinema that made me I came home and applied for the rights straight away.
Mm.
And when I say something happened, it was that something landed on me, and it was from that moment, this play has always been about, it's going to make me emotional. From that moment, this play has always been about something so much bigger than me. And I knew from that moment, and I didn't know what it was. I knew that something bigger than me was moving. I mean, like I said, I was like, I'm done. I don't want to do one of these again. And something bigger than me, well, that's not going to matter, because you've got a mission. You've got a calling for this something. Yeah, I just don't know how to explain it. And it's been a journey. It was a journey to get the rights. It was a journey to wait for them and to wait for my turn to do it. And but now, having done it and having toured it, and having the experiences that I've had, and having met the people I've met, and having someone say to me, one of the reviews wrote, oh, Cassandra delivered a war cry for the wounded wahine within us. Wahine is woman in Māori, and all I can think is that was the calling that got put on me when I went and saw it at the cinema. I was like, this is a war cry for women. It is a war cry for this war on sexual assault that is just still so prevalent around the world. Excuse my dog. A little woman in her own right. Yeah. It's just huge. I can't begin to explain how, and that's what I meant about earlier, about how, the work has now become quite spiritual, because I go, oh my God, like I've had this experience of being so determined to do something else, and then like life just going, no, like this story is going to be put on your heart, and you're going to have to work really hard. And but then you see why. You see, I have had the experience of, and I think this is the beautiful thing about theatre, is you get to come out the stage door after a show, and you get to hold women, you get to hold people, and it has absolutely just solidified my respect for this art form. So, because I've seen and felt firsthand, when people feel and see their stories being told, and they feel themselves being seen, the healing that takes place when that happens is it's like it's just real. Yeah, I can't, and it's not just some woo-woo thing. You just go, I see people come, people come to the theatre, and they're dressed beautifully, and they've got, the jewel, they're all, they're out for a night in the theatre, and all the masks are up, and they're ready to come to a show and be entertained, and to deliver a play like that, a performance like this, and then to come out and meet them afterwards, and you see the masks have come down, their hearts are open. And so many people shared their stories, and I'm sure every person that has done this play can attest to the same thing. But they would share their stories, many of them for the first time, because they felt seen, They felt someone else. So through our vulnerability as performers, through being real, like we're saying about not performing, by just being our vulnerable selves and getting up there and telling these stories, and not worrying what you're doing with your hands, or am I doing right, or but just going boof to the heart of the story and sharing that. And that's what people resonate with, and that's what make people feel less alone, and to gift that to people. Like I took the show around New Zealand into smaller communities. It was one of my big intentions, was to get it to the people. So I had to, the director and I had to craft this so that it would fit in the back of a van, that it could be packed into a new theatre in a day. I was always pinching myself, going, how is this a Broadway play that I am delivering to this little country town? But I was determined to get it to the people, because I really felt that it shouldn't just be for people that can get to Broadway or get to the West End, or, this story exists in women and on every corner of the earth, which is why it's doing so well all around the world. But I was like, women need to hear this story wherever they are. And I just felt that's calling on me, was to take it to the people. And why we made it a tourable, you know, a tourable version, a really simplified tourable version of it that we could get it to as many people as possible through that form. Yeah, and then after experiencing what I experienced with people, it all just sort of fell into place. And it brought, and it brought community. What was another beautiful thing was that it brought communities together, because a lot of the theatres I went to are all community led. And so, the people that run the theatres, they know everybody in their neighborhood and they know everybody that books tickets that come along, but they didn't know that they all shared this story with each other. And so to come in and to unite people in their pain, but for it to bring people together, was something very, very special,
Yeah. No, brilliantly put. Yeah, I wish I could give you a hug right now because I just thought,
Oh,
yeah,
it's
but yeah, I never heard of it sort of talked about in that way before. That was wonderful. Thank you for that.
no, look, I could talk forever about it. I just yeah, it's just, I mean, for Susie to have the courage to write this originally, and for anyone that's told this, it's just and the stories that you hear, you talked before about using personal life or personal things, but one thing I did find with this, a lot of people ask me, how do you find people sharing their stories with you? Is it heavy? Is it? And I was worried, and I'm not going to lie, I was worried that it would be.
Yeah, sure.
But in all honesty, with my whole heart, all it did, I just put it back into the story. So the final show was a very different show to the first show.
Oh yeah.
Simply because it was fueled by those stories I'd heard, the women I'd met. Oh my God, like you go from seeing like the people you've created to seeing these real women that you've met, they became like, so those final moments, you asked about the last show before we started talking, but that final show, delivering those final lines was like, not to quote the play, well, to quote the play, but I saw every woman that had come before me, and I saw all of them that will come after me, and you see them because you've met them and you've held them and you've seen their eyes be vulnerable and share their stories, and you just will never forget that.
Yeah, and it's like, I've spoken to a few people about, like you mentioned, like the stories and everything like, at the stage door and everything, and you have people come up and have talks with you afterwards. I remember talking to Georgia Bird, who was the stage manager of the London and Broadway as well, with Jodie, amazing girl. She we talked about how basically people would come up to them afterwards and Jodie or the creative team, and they would say that a lot of women, I suppose actually some men, I would imagine as well, they probably came up to them and said, it's taken X, Y, and Z happened to me, and it's taken me X, Y, and Z years to finally get this out. And I would imagine some people, I don't know about your experience, but some people have probably come forward to other productions who have done it, like you've done it in New Zealand. There's one in Germany. There's one in Spain now. It's going everywhere, which is, and then rightfully so. Of people who've just probably shared their stories, people who've held it in for so long, and finally, like you said earlier, like they felt seen, and then finally they go, yeah, this happened to me. This happened to me. If you go on YouTube, there's someone who reacts to it. I can't remember her name. I'll put it down below. She is very vulnerable. She reacts to the play, and then afterwards she tells a story about how she went to university or college, as they say in America, and she dropped out after one term because she went to a party in her first week, and yeah, her drink got spiked by two guys, and and then she refused to come out of a room. She says this all in the video, by the way, so I might be
Mhm.
sharing this if you're watching. That she talked about how she didn't want to come out of a room. The shame was just like was crippling. And then when she did, when she eventually left college, her mum was still like, "Why have you left college?" And she never told her until I would imagine a few years later. So, but yeah, like the stories you must have heard must have been like so vivid and so just like you say, like you nothing prepares you for the stories that
Nothing
come
prepares
out.
you.
Yeah.
I mean, I watch the news. I'm aware that this is uh, in the news daily.
Mm,
These stories are coming out daily. Court cases are daily. 1 in 3 is only who report it. Like I'm aware of
yeah.
all those things, but I think nothing really does prepare you for when a survivor literally tells you
Wow.
the exact experience. Like I've the things I have heard, you know, from people being in the daughters of fathers who ran pedophile rings to it's just you just like you're in shock because it's you know and to speak on what you said about people not sharing it, you know, before, what I did notice so much as well was just generationally what the difference. So uh one thing that was really important to me was having support at every show.
Yeah.
I had you know, I might have been a tourable production, but I had my sort of values with it. And one of the things was I think because I was producing it, because I was performing it, you know, I did not have a team behind me. People think, you know, people thought I had there was no one backstage, no one. So when I came
This,
off, you
this
know,
really is a one-woman show. Yeah.
and then I would pack up the set and put it in my van. And, you know, I traveled with a technician who did my lighting and sound.
Hmm.
And then would work with community venue techs and things like that. But I would drive myself hours to the next venue or hours home. And, but yeah, you know, there was no one backstage. I had to, you know, you know, look after myself and make sure I, you know, process things. And, um, so what was really important to me, because it was on my heart, and because I just simply couldn't be physically everywhere,
Mm.
one of the things that was really apparent to me was wanting support for the audience, because I wanted to know if someone was triggered, that there was someone who could help them, because otherwise I would have wanted to do it. I would have been like, "Ah," you know, that's so I was very, and so reaching out to sexual assault organizations around the country, they've all been amazing. I had psychologists at nearly every show to hold space for audiences. We didn't need it too much, but it was always advertised. It was always noted that there were people there. In saying that, one of the biggest things I noticed was it was the older women who have held their stories in their whole lives,
Wow.
and it was like, and the psychologists I spoke to who were in support of the shows, they said to me, yeah, that they're actually the hardest to treat as well, because they've held it their whole lives and they've just built all these walls and all this shame, like you were talking about the girl who shared.
Hmm.
They've built so much shame and guilt around it, and that you've got to remember that that was a different time. Like so many of them said to me, you never would go to the police. The police were just as corrupt, or you would never tell your parents because they said, well, you wore that, and you just so. I know this is a very progressive piece of art, this show, but when you think about, and I hate to say it, but when you think about the majority of a theatre audience is older white women, I don't know what it's like elsewhere, but that's the majority of the audience in New Zealand.
Yes, it's the
But
same over here. Yeah. Yeah.
those are they were the ones that had their stories. And to see them share, again, it was that double-edged sword of like they would share their stories, and often in front of their friends, for the first time, and they felt like they could, because because they'd just seen me share mine. So they were like, oh, I can maybe speak to it. And you've just, I will never forget the women's eyes that I have looked into, who just felt like, I trust you, I can share my story. And they did, but they were also held with the friends that they'd come with. And so it's opened up this part of themselves with each other that they never even knew. And so there's real beauty in that. And then I saw the healing that takes place when we share our stories. Whether they ever go and charge someone with it or go to court or whatever, whatever avenue they choose to go down, but it's just the act of sharing and getting it out is just so important.
Yeah.
And in saying that, the last one of the other things that was really important to me, and again, being self-funded, it was, no small feat, but I was passionate about getting the show to as many young people as possible. So I made it free for high school students
Oh, wow.
in every town I went to. And we would do Q&As because, and in saying that, they were amazing, the young high school students. And it's actually adults who are like, oh, I think it's a bit, I don't know, subject matter. And I was like, oh my God, I had some schools go, sorry, it's too close to home, so we won't bring our students. Like it's just, so I'm like, well, what's being done about it? What,
Yeah.
are they talking about? So it's, but what got me the most was the younger generation, how they are so much more aware of talking about it, asking questions, but what they need, I really saw what they need. They need hope. They need people to, they need us to be going, because they're not scared to ask their questions. They're not scared to tell their stories. But I heard from, one of the big things I heard from a psychologist was, that those first moments when someone shares their story with you are crucial.
Oh, yeah.
So if someone shared their story with you, even through what I was doing when they were sharing, if it's met in those first moments, if it's met with, oh, are you sure?
Yeah.
Or like if you're a boss of a, workplace, and, a colleague comes and goes, oh, I think this happened, and if it's, and that, in all fairness, that comes because of awkwardness. We're not taught how to deal with this type of conversation. So there needs to be a lot more work around that too, and just how you respond when someone does share their story, because those moments are crucial, whether someone will continue to, speak about it or not. I remember reading a long time ago, I think it was Goldie Hawn's biography, I think, and I remember she spoke about her experience with sexual assault, and she shared it with her mum, and this really stuck with me because, and it's actually come up a lot during the play, but she shared it with her mum, and her mum, from the minute she shared it, her mum was like, this was not your fault. That man is sick. And the way her mother dealt with it in the moment took any guilt or shame off her. And Goldie Hawn, she said, I never carried it. I never carried trauma from it, because it was from the moment I spoke about it, I was believed. I was I was taught that it wasn't my fault, and I think I think that's the voice we need to be, that's so many people need that, because even the older people that shared the shame, you can still see that they feel that they caused it somehow, and that they were to blame somehow, and
Absolutely not.
they're still, and they're not, and yeah, there's a lot of work to be done, and I'm also, it's really ignited a huge passion in me to continue the conversation, which thankfully I'm getting the opportunity to, but also even prevention, like how we, we can keep talking about statistics, and we can keep talking about, the legal system and all those things, but it's like, how can we start preventing it? How do we need to educate our young men? How do we need to educate our women, like to to try and prevent it.
Mm.
But yeah, but yeah, just the way young people, the conversations young people would have with me, and the stories that they were so brave to share, and the questions they were so brave to ask, and you just want to offer them that hope. I think that's what's needed, is hope, and that there are ways through their trauma, and there are ways through what they've been through.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's resources and
Yeah. No, it's
communication, I think. Yeah.
yeah, and like you said there, it's communication for young men especially, or people who say no. I mean, women are, they're people. They deserve every respect. If they say no, they're saying no.
Mm,
If they're saying yes, then it's yes. But if it's a
mm,
no, leave them alone, all that
mm.
kind of thing. And you know,
It's
it goes back to these like things like power play of people thinking like, oh, I'm stronger than you, therefore I am more dominant, therefore I am more important. And it's like, no, no, it's none of that. You reminded.
I think a lot of it is, I think there's a lot of unconscious stuff too at play, like
Yeah, yeah.
uh uh and it's not that I think this is a reason why anyone, gets sexually assaulted. It's not, but I think we would do really well to educate our women to really value themselves
Mm,
a lot more, so it just in terms of what, it's such a tricky conversation, and because I definitely don't want to cast any assumptions on why this, that anyone would cause it in any way, but
no, it's okay. It's okay.
just like respecting ourselves enough
Yeah.
to say no for us, because so many of us are we're trained good girls. We're like, oh, we don't have an embodied no in our bodies, because we're so trained to, be
Hmm.
nice, give your uncle a kiss goodbye, like to go against our instincts all the time. Society just is huge with that. They're like, we're always taught to override how we feel and be nice, be the good girl, otherwise you're considered a bitch, you're considered, you speak your mind and you're this, you're that. And so it takes a certain confidence to say no, and one of the organizations here, they're practicing with young people, just learning how to say no, not just around sexual assault or sexual, but like consent in general. Oh, hey, can I post this picture of you? Oh, oh no, I don't really like it. Oh no, it's fine. Like you look great. And then just
Mm.
overriding things no. And that can happen in just like a social media thing, or it can, like how are we I think practicing our no's and finding the courage to, I know my generation, we struggle with that. Like we were taught to be good girls, and there's that stigma of being a bitch if you're not, if you don't. And I'm proud to see that the younger generation are, I think, becoming more, vocal with what they want. But at the same time, I don't know. That's just one small way I think that we can empower women to find their voice and not be afraid to use it.
Mm.
Because I know myself, even now, if someone came at me, I think I would freeze just naturally, because I don't have an embodied sense of, a scream or a no, or like we all think we know what would happen. And in this story, like Tessa, she knew the legal system. She knew, and she still got caught. So,
Yeah.
and coming down into the legal process of that, it's crazy to think what people go through, because if this is a lawyer who knows the system, and
Mm.
that was her experience. You can only imagine what it's like for someone who does not know
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean,
any. You know.
do you remember the scene where Tessa, it's after what's happened, and Tessa starts running through legal instinct, where she goes, "Did you had you slept with a defendant before? Did you invite him to your home?" And then she's going through gelato, a server, Uber driver, waiter at the restaurant, all these witnesses who saw them laughing and having a great time, and then back at the flat already having sex earlier in the night, and then suddenly this thing happens, and then I think one thing that Tessa does is like you talking about this freeze or fight or flight, whatever it's called. And then she just runs into the shower and washes it all away. It's thinking she wants to get the shame, doesn't want to be reminded of it. But then afterwards, she's in the police station, goes, "I had a shower.
Mm.
Am I a fucking idiot? What? I've just washed all the evidence off me." And and it's a really it's a brilliant scene, but it's really complicated. That she knows that this is a losing. In fact, one of her lines is, "Legal instinct tells me this is a losing case." But is that personal battle which just about comes through, which makes her go to court and gives evidence, and there's that how do you say it, voir dire, like towards the end, where she has that epic speech about how when women are violated, it takes over the, what did she say? It takes over it's a corrosive wound. Oh God, I'm gonna find
Mind
it.
and the soul. Yeah.
Oh, where is it? Anyway. No, so anyway, I won't take too much time looking for it. But yeah,
It overtakes the mind and the
yeah,
soul.
yeah.
Yeah.
Overtakes the mind, the soul, and yeah. And then actually, one of the benefits I think of having NT Live was that I remember Jodie looked right into the camera and just went, "1 in 3 women, look to your left, look to your right. It's one of us." And
Mm-hmm.
and seeing that on that big screen, I mean, everyone in the cinema, of course, people who were lucky enough to see it in the theater as well, like yourself on Broadway when you went as well, because I know you went to Broadway and to see it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's epic.
I
I mean,
can.
yeah, you've reminded me of there's a Netflix show out at the moment called Baby Reindeer. I'm not sure if you've seen it.
I've seen it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you remember the final scene where he confesses to his parents what happened to him? And his dad, who
Mm,
has been really, really cold and really kind of like you can tell it's a very distant father-son relationship.
yeah.
There's no hugs, they just shake hands. But then he
Mm,
goes, I think when Richard Gadd's character says that he was abused by this writer, and he thought, "I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want you to think less of me," which I think
mm.
is probably something you maybe heard women say at the stage door afterwards. But
Oh, totally.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the dad goes, "Well, do you see me as less of one?" And you're going, "What? Do you see me as less of a man?" I was like, what are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, I grew up in the Catholic Church." And immediately, and again, going back to what you said earlier, just that word thoroughbreds, and suddenly this imagery of everything. And then that line, "I grew up in the Catholic Church," then immediately you're going, "Oh, fuck."
Yeah,
And that,
yeah.
yeah, and it answers
I mean,
so many questions. Yeah.
it does, and it's huge. It's actually hugely emotional just hearing you talk about the play, and you realize uh, how deeply ingrained Tessa is in me because
Mm.
you were sharing. It felt like you were telling my story,
Wow.
and that's purely because I've just lived it for this whole
Mm.
year.
Mm.
Um, but that's yeah, it is it is how it feels, and there's that I tell you that you talk about the voir dire moment at the end. Uh, we too brought the house lights up on the audience.
Oh
I
yes.
know
Yeah.
I did it as well, but we did it as well, which was an interesting experience going to different venues because, as you can imagine, they all had different house lights, and some were like bing, bing, bing,
Yeah.
and
Some
others,
are like, "Whoa, turn it down. It's too bright."
yeah, some were just like a gentle fade up, but I tell you that. as a performer, nothing. I'm very nervous because I don't think anything will. It's a real Joan of Arc moment. Like I don't think anything. I'm scared that I won't find anything again that will have that kind of moment in a piece of art. Like
I'm sure you
to
will.
to 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 hold, hundreds of people in an audience in the palm of your hand, and
Mm,
you could hear a pin drop every night. It's not like it was one off. Every single night when those words are spoken, you cannot hear a pin drop. And to be able to just, you've delivered the show. And at that point, you're quite ready to see the faces of the people that have been watching you and to deliver that. It's actually other actors might be fine, but I actually found it very difficult to get them out
mm,
because it's such a call to action. Like it's such a to just look in people's eyes and find it in you to go, look to your left, you know.
mm,
You can barely get it out because it's just such a like I said, it's just such a call to action. It's such a war. What it is, it's a war cry, like I said earlier. It's
yeah.
such a war cry, and it's coming from uh the it's coming from an ancestral call from the women before us. It's coming from a call from our daughters after us. And it's those moments where you just go, this is a moment where I've got you and I need you to hear it.
Mm,
Yeah. And it's, yeah, very few pieces have that moment,
yeah.
you don't want it. And, by that stage, you've shared it all. So you're not, you're not thinking about it as a grand performance moment. It's just, like I say, it's just a war cry. And
It really is. Yeah. It's
speaking for every woman. And a big revelation to me, because I was so focused on speaking to the survivors in the audiences, but you realize too that you're speaking to the perpetrators.
mm, mm,
One
yeah.
in three women, does that equal one in three men?
Well, yeah, in some ways.
Some
Yeah.
research that came out apparently is that it's not as many men. Like often perpetrators are repeat offenders, so they say it's often more like one in seven men, I think. But you definitely have your moments where that's an interesting experience as well, to seeing the men come out of the theatre and observing that's a whole nother aspect
Yeah.
of the men that came out that were just really like off by it. Like they were like, how do we fix, like you have your men that came out like that, the ones that were just so moved and so bothered.
Mm,
Um, and then you have the ones that come out looking a bit sheepish, and it's a big conversation.
yeah. It's people, I would imagine that, you know, the Julians out there, you've got to expose them. We've got to just keep having these conversations and
One
yeah.
thing I think, and again, to touch on the audience members of the audiences that your typical theatre audiences. One thing this play touched on as well in the voir dire is there was a time not so long ago where courts like this did not see non-consensual sex in marriage as rape.
Yeah, that's one of the lines, yeah.
And you look around and you think that's the generation that are sitting in this theatre, where if your husband wanted it, you did it. It was just your duty as a wife. So
Yeah.
they might not have thought they were, that experienced sexual assault, but I'm sure many of them sat there going, oh, there was many times I really didn't want that and felt like I had to. And so, it's
Mm,
yeah, it's yeah, and like you say, the the men in the audience, but yeah.
Yeah. I suppose that's a good lead on to this question, really. For you specifically,
Mm.
who is Tessa to you?
Who is Tessa to me? Uh, oh,
Yeah, because I know it's been done by quite a few actresses now, and it will continue to be so.
yeah.
So I know you are saying the same lines, the same scenario every night, but every actor sees a character in a different way or has a similar yet different way of looking at her. So what would you say is who is Cassandra's version of Tessa?
I think Tessa is just a name for the part of me. Uh, how do I word this? Tessa is a name for the part of me I found for the part of me I found in myself who knew the story. Whether it was actually lived by me or not is irrelevant. Uh it was made real by my heart. It was made real by my my soul's calling to this story and to all the ancestral lines that wanted to speak through me.
Mm,
Uh, and for the woman I was speaking about, she's she's every woman I've met on this journey, as well, yeah, like I said, as well as the part of me that uh has always felt that injustice,
mm,
has always had that fight in me. She's just a name for that part of me that got to be expressed.
mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And I feel very protective of her. I'm
Mm,
very, I'm very, I'm so glad it's being done all around the world, but I'm really protective of this story, and I know that's not my right.
mm,
Um, but I am. I'm really like, because I just feel I just want anyone who gets their hands on the story to know the responsibility that they have.
mm.
And I know I felt that from the moment I saw it.
Yeah,
And I just feel very protective of that. I feel like I hope that whoever does it and whoever's hands it in, whether it's the creatives or the actors or whoever, I hope that they know that they've been called to the story
mm,
and that there is a weight of responsibility on you to share the story and to yeah, yeah, I don't know how else to put it, but I just feel very
yeah. But
protective
yeah, no, but
of
you're
it.
no, but
Um,
it's almost like you're part of Prima Facie's history now
yeah.
because it's still a very new play. It's only like 2 years old now, but it's in development for years. But obviously, the version we have now, it's still a very young play. But you're part of that history already. You're part of the early history of Prima Facie. You are,
Oh, and it is a, and
yeah.
it, I feel like it's a weight of responsibility, but it's also such a privilege because, again, it's not you're telling every woman's story. That's not
Mm,
that's just you cannot yeah, I'm just forever grateful for that for the opportunity to do that, and
yeah,
you know I to think I created that myself.
yeah,
But I was just determined, and now I'm coming out the other side, and I'm only a couple of weeks from finishing it, and I was very aware this whole process again because I was on my own. I was very aware, and especially of how I experienced the last show I did, I was very aware that I was going to have to take good care of myself and learn how to regulate my nervous system and all those things because it's very real. Your body doesn't know the difference when you're getting raped every night. and and fighting this, putting myself through that every night, your brain can say, oh, it's just, you're just playing pretend, but your body doesn't know that. And I've learned so much about the nervous system, and my body is still, I can still feel it's processing, what it was holding on to, and, just not only just the emotions of the play, but the adrenaline of the performance, and then, the after surge of, this roar that, I honestly have never felt this. I don't know if you have, but I've never felt it before. But every theatre felt like it shook. At the end, it just felt like you were just shaking the ground that this theatre was built on. And that's a very physical thing. Like the body's like, ooh, So yeah, learning to regulate all that. But I feel very proud. Like I know only we know the obstacles that we've had to overcome, and only we know the journey we've been on ultimately. But I know the journey it was to get this play on, and what it took from me. And I am really proud that I was able to do it justice, and to have just the connections I've made with people, and it's forever changed my view of this art form. Like it's just made me determined now to want to tell stories.
It shows that the arts are fundamental to our lives. People say, "Oh, it's just a hobby." It's like, "Oh, go away." It's like, no.
I love that quote. Did you see it in COVID? I saw this quote, and it was like, remember when everything shut down, what the world turned to? Art. We all went to Netflix, we all went to music, we all went to, like, when the world shut down, we all turned to artists.
Yeah.
So to undermine our place in society is just crazy. And
it shows that art can change the world, and does change the world by a lot of things. So
I think this play in particular is a prime example of literally that being done, because I think artists have they have a big influence on people, hate word the influence, but in our these days different, but we have a big influence on people, and like I said before, there's a responsibility with that.
There's absolutely. We are part of the fabric of society as much as anyone else is. In fact, we have a very strong place there, and we are more than just a hobby. We change the fucking world. We really do. We really do. So,
and it's healing. It's therapeutic. It's healing. And not just the heavy stuff. When we made to laugh and cry, and the fact that art gives us the ability to express ourselves, whether that's through laughter or tears or whatever, rage. It's all, we need to get it out. Too many people walking around repressed. And that the unhealthy side of that, like what happens when we hold stuff in for too long.
And it's just the importance of talking more than anything is.
Communication and connection are just underrated.
Very underrated, it is. So tell me about so you were on the road with this thing for, like you say, like one woman show, not only on stage but also, I know you had a guy who did your sound and your lighting and everything, but what was it like taking this across the country?
Well, like I said, it was people were just shocked when they would hear that. But it was a one-woman show in every way. Like a lot of venues, I didn't take the technician with me. I used the one that was at the venue, so I would have to early and teach them the show, and pack in, and the set was basically carpet tiles that made a 4.5 meter squared law room, and a table and a coat stand, and it was very minimalist but really effective, I thought. but yeah, I would travel to the venue, pack in, and run through the show with the technician, and or the technician I would have to rejig all the lights in every venue, and
Mm.
some I went by myself, some I was away by myself, and that was I think it's just I mean it's just humbling because you realize it can be done. It can be done. Like this story is strong enough. It didn't need, and I think I remember reading something about the West End version, and how, obviously when you're taking them into theaters like where it's been and on Broadway, there's an element of the set has to be something,
Like
because
grand
people
and
paying
special,
big
yeah.
money, and there's an expectation with those venues that there's a bit of grandness to them, and I understand that for sure. Um, but there's also something really beautiful, and my director Michael Hurst, he's the king of just good old storytelling. And his whole process with this was like we just kept taking away from it more than adding to it. We had this idea to start with, and then it just got simpler and simpler and simpler, you know. And performance-wise, he was really big on he said you don't have to be literal with everything. You can be talking about being on the balcony with a cigarette talking to Mia without actually doing it, and the audience actually like don't take away the audience's ability to use their own imagination.
Mm.
And like we just found that a lot of it didn't need to be spelled out for them. They would, because like we were just talking earlier about our imagination and what's real is like you're the amount of people that would share what they saw. Oh, I thought the cop looked like this, or oh my God, I totally saw your mum's house when you were at your mum's place. And, people would share all their what they saw with me. And it was like, and it's beautiful because everyone has their own creations of what the story is, and you're just
Mm.
telling the story. So that was really cool. But your question around traveling, I mean, it's just beautiful, especially, I don't know what it's like over there, but you get out of the main city, which I did do it in the main city of Auckland, but you get out of Auckland and people are hungry for the arts, and to bring them something like this was just like, oh, priceless. Like
Mm.
to bring them, to be able to bring them something, people, they get a lot of music gigs and they get things like that, but I had to pinch myself sometimes and go, you're bringing these people a Broadway show, like that's what you're giving them access to.
Yeah.
And that felt good. It felt good to go, I'm bringing them something I was so moved by. And you forget that these people hadn't seen it before, so yeah, so rewarding, so rewarding. And just like I said earlier about how it brought communities together because they saw each other share their stories. I think that was something very special. Like I would waltz on and do the show, crack everyone's hearts open, and share their stories with them. But what's left when I leave is that they've got that beautiful openness with each other.
Mm. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
absolutely. No,
that felt really special.
yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you did. If it's okay to ask this, what would you say was like one of the most memorable reactions that you got to this thing? And obviously, if you don't want to tell their story, if you feel like you're speaking for them, that's fine. But what would you say was one of the like reactions to this thing that you'll never forget?
Um, there's probably not one specifically, but it's just the
Yeah, or collectively, yeah.
collective of just, and I don't know about other actresses who are doing this. I don't know how much interaction they're having with the audiences, but I would literally come out and meet them as they're walking out of the audience. There's no barriers up, this isn't Broadway, there's no security guards. Again, it was just me. There's no one protecting me or anything like that. So it's a very raw, hands-on experience. But I loved it too. I was like, no, I want to come and meet them. I want to see how, So I think, honestly, just having people fall into your arms and
mm,
seeing a little girl in them, and these are older women, majority,
mm,
having women like your nanas and your mums say, "Can I give you a hug?" And you go, "Of course." You give them a hug, and then they just pull back and then look into your eyes and say, "I really want to share my story with you,"
mm.
and just holding space for that. It's that's just and feeling their trust when they do that. It's just sacred. It's like I don't, I will never forget it. I will never forget, those women's eyes. I will never forget just, these women who just collapse in your arms. And it's like,
Yeah.
how is this the effect of a play? But I also, again, that's the way that, when I talk about the responsibility of it, I feel that's why I wanted psychologists at the show, because and inevitably I ended up doing what I had brought those people in for. Not that I minded it in any way, but that's what I hope people are, I hope I hope that care is being given. Because to answer your question, that has been the most rewarding thing.
Oh yeah, yeah. Just
Like being able to actually hold space for people to share their stories afterwards.
yeah.
Um, you've only got to do a show like this. My heart was just like, everyone was like, "Oh, you don't mind me?" I was like, my heart like is splattered. It's been splattered across the stage. I've spat on you. I've, cried on you. I've everything. It's all, bleh. It's all been out there.
Yeah.
So it actually was a form of actually having something be given back, uh, in a weird way.
Mm. Yeah, I know, absolutely.
Mm.
I know you did a charity thing. Was it a Help Auckland charity event that you
Yeah.
did recently, and where you actually psychologists actually came and talked about this thing. And well, A, how did it go? And B, what would you say was like one of the main things that you talked about at this thing?
Well, yeah, so Help Auckland are one of New Zealand's largest sexual assault organizations. And when I met with them prior to starting the seasons. Um, and I met with them because I wanted support at the shows, and they were just incredible. And I learned so much about them. They've been around for 40 years, and they are just all over this issue. They provide long-term therapy, they provide crisis support, they provide legal services, they provide medical, like they are just on top of this thing, which is comforting for a thing that feels like we're not on top of it. So
Mm,
they're an amazing resource. And so yeah, so they came and supported me with all the shows. And so they asked me, they have a big annual fundraiser each year, and they asked me to be a guest speaker at it, and talk about the show and my experience of it, which I was just, of course, happy to. And so I actually started it by saying I'm so grateful that after touring the show, uh, I'm just so grateful that an organization like that exists, because it was so comforting when people shared their stories, and to be able to direct them to someone that could help, or to for support, and to just know that you knew that you were directing people into good hands. And I think that was really amazing. But it's a funny one. People are interested about different things. Some people were like, "How did you fund it yourself? And how do you learn
mm,
all the lines?" And there's all these sort of practical things that people want to know about, which I totally I understand. Um, but I think the main takeaway always is just uh, how it felt like a calling bigger than me. And as I get to continue the conversation, and I've been asked to actually host, like, present a talk at another event about the same thing, and to be able to continue the conversation is really special, because
mm,
you asked what Tessa meant to me. She's still alive and well, and
of course.
I feel like at the end of the play, I feel like she found her voice, like she says, I found my voice. It's a different voice, but it's mine. I feel like I'm continuing that voice
Mm,
for her, which feels good,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, you carry the spirit of Tessa with you, like wherever
I
you
do,
go.
and I do, and I'm not. It's really interesting. I'm not scared. I'm not nervous. I'm not. because I've got so much lived experience now from doing it and from the people I've met that there's, as you can see, I can talk for hours about it. But so there's not, I don't ever feel like I need to plan anything or, oh, well, I know what to say because when you've had
Yeah,
that first experience, you learn how to, it's all just an embodied experience now that I get to speak from
yeah,
and speak too, like you're speaking for all the women that have just stayed quiet and not shared.
yeah. No, keep it coming. Keep it coming.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well,
There's so much
I
left.
think Jody, yeah, I feel, I think I remember watching something Jody said about, we look forward to the day where this conversation, it doesn't need to happen,
Mm. Yeah.
that, we will all celebrate that day. But until then, there's a long way to go.
Mm,
Someone said to me, at this event, actually, someone said to me, there was a time when domestic violence wasn't spoken about,
mm,
um, the way it is now. And now, now you go into your local shops and they say, do you want to donate $1 to Women's Refuge? And, hopefully we can get to the point where sexual assault is being spoken about as openly. Yeah. Because I don't know if you ever saw it, but I did a commercial a few years ago. It went viral around the world, so you probably saw it, but it was two porn stars. Did you ever see that? Two naked
no.
porn stars knocking, okay, I'm going to send it to you. Two
Yeah.
naked porn stars knocking at the door of this young boy's house. And it was called Keep It Real Online. And it was a viral commercial around raising awareness around consent and like children learning through pornography about sex.
Okay.
And it honestly, you won't recognize my accent because I took the Mickey out of yours, but it went viral, and I think that was because even as adults, we're still learning. Well, that we're learning like, oh, you mean you don't learn through porn? Like how, even adults are still learning to have the conversation. Is what I'm trying
Mhm.
to say. We're
Yeah.
still learning how to talk about this stuff openly. I know through Join the Play, my parents have finally, they are able to just say some of the words out loud a bit more confidently than definitely what they did growing up.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, conversation and connection, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. There'll come a day when we won't have these conversations anymore,
Yeah.
and that'll be a day, that'll be a time which will be a lot more, which will be good because then more people can talk, more people can, and to get there, like you say, we just have to keep the conversation going until we simply can't talk about it anymore. And not when I say not talk about it anymore, not as in I don't want to go there, but I mean like we can't talk about it anymore because we've talked about it, we've dealt with it, and now we can just move forward with this. Until then, just keep having the conversations, keep talking.
Yeah, and that's, like I said before, that's the beauty. What I noticed with the young people, they're willing to talk about it, and
Mm,
we have to just not shut them down.
mm,
It's a big thing. Oh, it's a bit awkward. Oh, I'm not sure if I'm saying the right thing. It's like, well, just it's better than nothing. Like talk about it, and yeah, yeah,
yeah. I think yeah,
yeah.
it's interesting. I know I've had you for quite a bit, so I've just got just a few more things for you because
Go for it. Go
yes,
for it.
I know it's into the evening now for you there in New
No,
Zealand,
that's right.
but yeah, just very quickly, I won't say his name actually, but I've heard some stories of people who worked in pubs and a few other things, and this guy who shall remain nameless, sort of said that one night he was like 15, 16 years old at the time, or probably 16 or 17, and he was clearing up a table, and he's had this massive tray full of glasses, and he's picked up in front of these women on this table, and one of them just grabbed him by the crotch, and just
Mm,
and just and I said to him, so what did you do? And he said, well, I, I just stood there and I thought, I don't know what to
yeah.
do. So he literally, for want of a better phrase, just wriggled his way out of it and just carried on.
Mm.
And I don't think he spoke about it until very recently. But yeah, but it's these things that I'm not trying to vindicate anything of what you're saying or anything, but it's just people who it has happened to.
Oh, look,
Keep having the
uh,
conversations. Yeah.
yeah, and look, I'm glad you said that because, we've been talking a lot the whole night about women, but this
Yeah.
happens to men.
Oh
And
yeah. Yeah.
the reviewer, I am so grateful for, I know we shouldn't care about reviews and things like that, but
Yeah, just the good ones.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But I'm just so grateful for the reviews I got. Not that they were good or bad, but just in the way that they saw the messaging. That was what really moved me. And the reviewer of one of the reviewers he spoke about his own in the review, shared his own experience with sexual assault when he was 10.
Wow.
So through the review, he was able to share his story. And yeah, so it's and I think you're right, these conversations need to be had around and about it happening to men, because there's a lot of shame that you got the shame around
Mm.
men go through as well, whether it be man on man or man, like female on a man. It's
Yeah, we talked about Baby Reindeer earlier. For anyone who
yeah,
hasn't
yeah.
seen it, that's a show about a stalker who, and there's one scene in particular where she stalks him into a canal area late at night, and yeah,
Mm.
what happens
There's
happens. But yeah.
I think when I worked with Diana Castle on Prima Facie, some of the big themes that we uncovered, I mean, obviously the big theme is sexual assault in the law, but a big theme, I think, which often people may miss, is it's a real class story as well.
Mm.
Tessa grew up from a middle class background. She didn't have the resources that Julian had. It's funny because the Australian New Zealand script, Julian is named Damien. So it's when you say Julian, it's actually quite funny because they changed the name in our version of the script. But but it's interesting, his background and what he grew up with money and son of a KC, and she didn't grow up like that. And so the class, how we're affected by class. And it was interesting that as soon as he found out she wasn't a private school girl, he rapes her.
Mm.
And it's something that's very, it's quite subtle, but it's there, the story of class. And
Yeah, I never thought about it like that. Yeah.
no, it's an interesting, it's class and just,
Mm.
yeah, money, it's
Yeah. Just on a slightly lighter note, do you remember the bit where she first goes to law school on the first day, and
yeah.
in the UK version, she looks to her left and goes, I turned to the boy on my left, Benedict. Of course, he's called Benedict. Was he called Benedict in your one, or was
No,
it?
he was called Thomas.
Was it Thomas? Okay.
Thomas. Boy on my left, Thomas. Yeah. But again, from that moment, she didn't felt, yeah. Um, and I had lawyers come who go, God, you've made me question why I'm, defense lawyers. And I was like, wow, it took a play for you to question why.
Yeah.
Giving me a really new perspective on the legal system itself. Like I'm like, it's made me see it as it's quite, in a way, like a bit of a religion. It's like they have to buy into what they learn and what it teaches them. But when you remove that, sort of hierarchy and away, if you just, it's quite interesting when you just pull back the curtain on
Mm.
lawyers. Yeah, interesting.
Few skeletons in their closet.
And just, how they, yeah. But as you said, you just mentioned to lighten it, I think communicating about these subjects, I think one of the things I noticed was when I got to meet people afterwards was trying to bring a bit of light, and it's not, we all know it's a heavy subject. We all know that, but there was something, like I had my girlfriends come to opening night, and they were like, oh God, 1 2 3, it was all of us, and not that we're not making a mockery of it, but it's just when I shared that anecdote to other women, they were like, oh, the weight that came off them when they not when they just didn't feel alone from one seeing the performance, but when I would also share things like that, I said, look, me and my friends were all like 1, 2, 3, it's all of us, and there's this sisterhood, which I think was very clever, whether Susie was aware of it or not, that she did actually she did filter that into the play around with the cop at the end, the young cop at the end, the female cop.
Oh yeah.
She squeezed my upper arm like a friend, a sister. There was an element of sisterhood in there with that cop, which I thought was very, again, another, I think there's so many undertones of this in this show that go beyond the main themes, and that theme of sisterhood. Because when Tessa at the end says, "I meet the eyes of that one young woman," and that's powerful as well when you realize you're fighting for your sisters.
Yeah, you really are. And there's a moment in just before the court scene where her mum comes to see her, and she says, I'm gonna try and find the line. Hang on, just bear with me. Um,
Don't let the bastards bring you down. That one.
yes, yeah, when her mum says to her, just don't let them ruin our Tessa. Don't let them take our Tessa away, or don't let the bastards get you down. Yeah, like you say. And there's no. I'll see if I can find it. Just hang on a second.
That's another moment.
Oh yeah,
That's another moment.
yeah. I got it. Sorry. Um, so yeah, so her mum comes in. She gives her a strawberry jam sandwich, and she says, "Mum hands me a sandwich, strawberry jam. My stomach can't take it, but she looks so worried. She looks so old now, deep bags under her eyes. Silence. Chew white bread, the taste of overly sweet strawberry with butter. She gets up and completely engulfs me in this gruff hug. Be your strong self. Don't let the bastards get you down, even if they get away with it. Just don't let them ruin our Tessa."
Mm.
And it's like, I mean, it just.
Again, you're making me cry because it's like you're telling my story. It's like somebody reading a journal. It's actually an interesting experience.
Yeah.
But that moment, I can tell you from doing that, being in that moment. I don't know if it says in that script. Does it say in there she makes a noise after that?
Yeah, I make a noise. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she says, but I won't cry. I won't.
So
Yeah.
that moment for me that moment for me was very it's one of those things you were asking earlier about, choosing your choices as an actor and stuff. But there's moments like that where I was like, I remember when I read it, I was like, oh, what kind of noise can I make? Because it says she makes a noise. I make a noise, but I won't cry.
Yeah.
And then you deliver that and you're so in it, your body just makes this quite primal noise.
Mm.
I mean, I don't want to do it, but it was such a like a like and it's that squashing of like I will not, like it all wants to come out and it can't.
Yeah. It's like the emotion just is coming to the surface. You go, okay, no, okay, come on, come on.
Yeah, and it's so visceral. You're just like,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's this play is just full of them. But
Mm.
yeah, there's moments like that where you're like, and you can't really plan them. And the more you go on the run, the more it was just you just allow, like you trust that, and the emotion, some nights would be really full in certain places, and then again, what we were talking about, not pushing. I think when we try and push and perform something and think we've got an idea of, right, well, I need to look like this here and I need to cry here. And when I really was really conscious of allowing myself not to force anything, because I would literally feel when I was forcing it, it was like putting a lid on it.
Mm. Mm.
And I would have to, and I would find myself in moments doing that. I was like, oh, you're pushing a little here. How can you surrender? How can you surrender? It was when I would just go, just allow it. allow the experience to move you more than your thoughts of you need to cry here. And maybe it wouldn't come when you thought it was going to, but then in another bit, like a moment like that, this wail would come out that you just didn't expect. And it's all because you're just tapping it, you know. You're tapping it throughout the whole play, and uh the story will create the emotion, you know. The emotions don't come first.
You know, the play takes you there. It almost it grabs you by the most, like you said, the most primal instincts, and it takes you there. And
And you've just got to, as a performer, you've just got to, like, I just had to allow that.
yeah,
So don't think you've got to hit this place in this moment, you know. Just allow the story to work on you, and
exactly.
trust that everything you've created, which is why I'm moved when you read some of it, because I'm like, it's like someone's reading my journal, and that's a sign to me. I'm like, oh, that's a sign that I really went there, you know. And it's the same with HANNA now, you know. It's been a year since I've done that, and but I'll see things, and I have to remind myself, oh no, that was from the play. That wasn't my life. Like, because you create such, you know, and we'll touch on it briefly, but you know, a big thing with these one-person shows is people are like, how do you learn the lines? Everyone's probably the biggest question people ask, and I understand it, because it is
Yeah.
it is an interesting question, and I think what I've tried to answer with that is that if I asked you what you had for breakfast, you'd be able to tell me with detail, and I could ask you questions about it. Where were you sitting? What did you have? Was it hot? But if that was just one word, breakfast, that's one word. But for that one word, you've got a whole world around about forever. So it's the same thing, like we're saying thoroughbreds. That's a word into a world of Tessa's world, particularly around, you know, the law, the legal world, and especially when it gets used again later. But yeah, so learning lines, it's like you're learning lines. Yes, there's the technical, you know, repetition and blah, 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 blah. But I think a big part of, and I know that the confidence when you're up there by yourself, and you'll need this because you're going to be doing your show. When you're up there by yourself, your confidence isn't rooted in, do I know the words? It's your confidence is rooted in, what is the world I'm in? And I don't mean to sound like that you would go off and just improv it if you had to. But if you had to, you would, because you are aware of the situation that you're in. Does that make sense? You know, so
you allow your surroundings to help
you
you
build,
help you get
yeah,
there.
you
Yeah.
build the world. You build the world around, like, okay, who am I here with? Oh, right. You know, I'm in court. Judges. What is, you know? You build the world around the text of the script is such a minute delivery system to the whole world of the story you're telling. So yeah, I found that, yeah, creating worlds that's the work, you know, and then you layer the words back on top of that, and
Yeah.
you know, but
Yeah, but just if I may ask, just very quickly about the line learning process, and I'm sure
yeah.
you've been asked this like 100 times already, but but when you learnt it, did you how did you do it? Did you break it down into chunks, and did you write it out? Did you?
Yeah, I definitely, you know, like I definitely broke it down into scenes. You know, this play is written in scenes, so I was able to do that, which was cool. The last one I did wasn't. It was just 90 minutes of
All there,
monologue. So
straight
yeah,
down.
so it was like fun. Um, but I think so this one I actually struggled, because the dialogue is written very poetically, so it's written like word, 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 not like
It's
sentence,
like
sentence.
it's almost like in verse, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So it was written quite, and it was also a language that, you know, I don't speak. I don't speak legal language, so I had to, you know, it was a world and a rhythm that I didn't know. So I had to learn that. Once I began rehearsals at solidified things a bit more because I was aware of, once I kind of figured out the rhythm and the pace of, I mean, this, we did it, the pace of the show is very like, um, like a thoroughbred. You're out the gate and then it just does not stop. So, so breaking it down, yeah, definitely. But then I think what I would do is I would break it down and I would go, okay, this is, say, scene one, and I would go read it a few times, just really get a feel for what the story was about, and then sorry, what the scene was about, what was going on, who was in it, and then filling that as much as I can in my imagination. Like, okay, what did the judge look like? Where was he? What was he? What like you do when you read a novel. Your imagination just fills everything. And then the lines, they do just come a lot easier when you do that. It's if you try and learn them without any context, it's that's when it's hard.
Yeah.
I did really struggle with this though, with the all the interrogation. So yes, no, no, what?
Yeah.
All that stuff, because it's very like, and I tried filling in the gaps. What am I being asked here? What am I, and it just took a while for my brain to lodge those ones, but we got there in the end.
Yeah, it's
But
those
yeah,
scenes that take a long time. Yeah.
yeah, like, which is ironic because it's so few words. Like the words in those scenes, are so minimal, but yeah, they were just, yeah, I guess, yeah, I just had to fill them with a lot of life and a lot of where am I, what's being done, and and by that point, Tessa is feeling a million things, so it's understandable to be struggling to find your words, so
Yeah.
again, putting it back into the story and going, okay, this is a very, sometimes, like I said, sometimes don't fight what comes up and go, okay, why am I struggling with learning these lines? It's like, well, in that moment you would be she is struggling to find the right word because she doesn't know what's going on. She cannot foresee what is happening to her.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. I always wondered, like, if your first time you learn something, then you go through it. It's like the very first time you do it, it's like line, just make sure it's all there, and then afterwards, then you can start working on it, and then they sort of become more
Yeah, yeah,
organic in a way. So as,
yeah.
that's the important thing anyway. I'm not sure if you did this, but did you ever like speed run it? Like just go like, for example, again going back
Uh,
to
I had my
thoroughbred.
moments where I definitely had my moments where like if I hadn't done it when I was touring and I'd have a couple of days off, I would run it quite
Mm,
fast just to, it was more peace of mind. It was like, I just need
hmm.
to know I've gone through it.
Yeah, it's still there.
Because also, as you know, with this, the linking of scenes, it jumps from different things. So remembering what comes, what scene comes next of, oh, that's right, I go to mum's next, and then I go back to the courtroom, and then so it sort of jumps around a bit. So finding my rhythm with that. But yeah, I would speed run it. Once I knew it, I would speed run it just to, you know, just, that's just a trick for the brain, I guess. So
Mm,
definitely all those practical things you definitely do. But what I find when because I mean, it's the biggest fear, right? When you're on stage, you're like, what if I just go blank? And when you're up there by yourself, it's just terrifying. But I think the confidence, like I said, the confidence comes from, and I had to tell myself this every night. There wasn't a night that it was ever, oh yeah, I've got this. Every night I had to go pull myself out of any actor concerns. Who's out there tonight? Oh man, I've done it already. Like, oh, whatever, but tired today. Any actor concerns, I had to be very disciplined with going, hang on, what are you focused on? What are you doing? What are like, and you bring yourself back to the story, and you've got to be really disciplined. Because when you're out there by yourself, the audience can't save you.
mhm.
You've got to just stay in the world that you've created.
Mm,
Uh, and, you know, someone will use their phone and it will throw you, or someone, you know,
Yeah.
goes to the bathroom and you're like, you know, and all that brings you back is the work that you've done on the story, and bring it, you're like, hang on, who am I? Because it can wobble you, you know, you're natural, you're a person, you're a
Mm,
human. Things like that do wobble you, and you have to, but what really gives you confidence, and what really is probably the biggest thing I can speak to, is just the confidence that comes from the content that you create.
hmm
So that when those things happen, you're aware of, like, hang on, who am I? Oh, that's right, I'm here with you, and we're talking about this, and,
mm,
you know, and you bring yourself back. It's constantly just bringing yourself back into the story, back into the moment.
mm.
Mm, mm.
Absolutely. Like you just remind yourself of the world in which of which you're part of, and then that helps
Yeah,
you get back into it, which is just, I mean, yeah,
yeah. Who did I just talk to? Oh, what just happened? Oh, yeah, the judge just told me that. Oh, that's right, you know, and then you find your way again, and
it
um, yeah. But you learn, you know, the brain's a tricky thing, and
is.
the body and the brain, though, they're pretty amazing. You know, the brain is pretty powerful.
It is
It's
very
amazing
powerful.
what it can do, and yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
almost like sometimes they're aligned with each other, sometimes it's different. Sometimes the head will say one thing, then the body will go, no, or it's not, or
yeah.
the other way around. You know, it's very. I love that dynamic. It's very interesting. It's like your body's on a journey as well. It's not just your head ruling everything. Your body's on a journey as well, and like that
Yeah, like
visceral
we were saying,
experience. Yeah.
yeah, like we were saying earlier, you know, sometimes the best moments come from when you actually allow your body to take it over, you know, and you go. But that's allowing that vulnerability that we were talking about earlier, is so that's what connects people, is
Yeah.
when you allow your vulnerability. And sometimes that's just holding a moment longer than you feel comfortable doing.
Mm.
Want to get on with it, or
Right.
you just want to, but that one moment can really just land the whole piece in a different way. And in the moment, as the performer, you feel like you're just out there hanging for all to see. But it's like that's the, you know, that's what people are like.
Yeah.
Oof.
And that's what gets that reaction as well. When people come up
Yeah,
to you and
yeah,
share this, like they've only met you that night, and they're going, "This happened to me," and
yeah.
you're like,
And they don't even
"Yeah,
know me. They don't know me personally. You know what I
no,
mean? Like,
no." The
I
first time they
yeah.
saw you was on stage. Yeah.
Yeah. A lovely reviewer actually said, you know, I don't know Cassandra, and I still don't, but I know Tessa, and that was lovely, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Here's to Tessa, and of course to Susie Miller, the writer as well. So yeah,
oh yes,
so many
yeah.
things, many things.
I would love her to get together, all the Tessas. I think that would be pretty special.
Yeah, just do a big group meeting, everyone in one room, just
I
like
think that would be really beautiful. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that'd be great.
All the
Yeah, of course,
mm.
Susie's got a new play out next year. It's coming to the National next year. Another play based on the law as well. Same director, Justin. Yeah, it's only just been announced
Oh,
actually. So
amazing.
yeah, so hopefully
You
they'll
know what it
screen
is
that.
yet? Or?
I'm not sure, hopefully, but hopefully they'll screen it to you guys maybe next year. I think I'd hope so anyway. Be nice to see.
There's a few people in that though, right? There's a
Yeah, I think this isn't a one person show. As far as I know, it's not. It could be, but I don't know. But I know the lead is Rosamund Pike. She's going to be in it as well, and
yeah, yeah,
she's a fantastic actress. She's really good, so we look forward to that. Just
yeah.
got only a few more questions for you, Cassandra. The first, honestly, we could talk forever, couldn't we?
I
But
know.
yeah, but no, but I know there's so much left to talk about. But yeah, I'd love to have you back for another one. Just let's continue this.
Please, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Let's
If
keep this
anyone's still with us,
conversation
but we're
going.
still with us.
Yeah. No, no,
We're still
seriously.
here.
Honestly, yeah. No, I'd love to do a part two and everything. I've got so many more things for you. But
Oh,
just got final few things. First of all, what would you say? Yeah, you probably answered this already, but what has Tessa given you and what has she taken away?
she's really good. Like, I've grown so much from being her. like I said, I'm continuing her voice. Like her voice, I feel like is in me now, and I'm continuing the new voice she finds in the end. I feel like I'm carrying that torch forward,
Hmm.
and I'm excited to see where that leads. I don't know, I don't know. There's a lovely quote that I like. It says, "We never see the dots in foresight, but we see them in hindsight." And it's like I don't know where this is leading me, but I've only got to look back and go, well, it's been, the dots were definitely there along the way, and I've just got to keep kind of, following the path. But she's just um she's opened my heart to this whole, to survivors of sexual assault. She's made me not afraid to look at it, you know, uh, to really just pull back the layers of this thing that's very, cloaked in a lot of shame, uh, and awkwardness. And, she's made me feel really confident about, peeling back the layers and having the conversations with people as awkward as they are. And we're all learning about it. No one's an expert. And so, yeah, I think what I've learned from producing it, uh, mm, and the courage to, perform the show by myself, you know, I got that from her. The courage she had to, speak out against what she had been through. How can I complain about, like, oh, I'm scared, I've got to go talk in front of, people. Like, there's nothing in compare, so, it's very humbling. She hasn't really, I don't think she's taken anything from me. I mean, it's just added to my life. She's just a part, like I said, it's just a part of me that's been, you know, unveiled, and one that I'm happy to keep. I was a little worried. People said, oh, how do you feel it's all sort of, that's coming to an end, especially because I did it for so long, played it for 4 months. And but I don't feel like, I made a decision quite early. I was like, it's not like I'm not letting her go. I'm not, okay, tying that up in a bow and putting it over there. It's like she's in me and she's a part of me, and we're moving forward. And um yeah, I would, yeah. So I actually hasn't taken anything,
Mm. Yeah, I know.
just
If she
added to
hasn't,
my,
yeah, she's
yeah.
added, and that's good. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant what she's done, and I'm sure, and the lives that you've probably changed every night, and like you took this play to areas which, like you said earlier, doesn't get a lot of access to the arts. You were hungry for the arts, I think you said, and you took
And
this.
also,
Yeah,
where those particular areas, it's sad to say, sexual assault, the rates are even higher in those areas, you know.
yeah,
That's the other thing as well, you're taking it to the people, but you're also taking it to the people who are the most affected by this stuff.
mm,
In some cases, some of the areas where I saw the most school kids, high school students,
yeah,
you know, most of them have had experiences of this. So, and again, it's just made, it has ignited, like I'm not done with them. I really want to
mm,
go back and talk to them more. And I think that's a beautiful thing as well. It's like the play was just a spark, really.
yeah,
A friend of mine said to me the other day, it's like, the play was like the diving board, and but you're the one, you're being asked to come back and talk about these things further. And I feel a great honor in that. But again, I don't, it's the Tessa in me. It's not, it's the Tessa that's been awakened in me that, has that voice.
mm,
Um, mm, mm.
yeah. Like we say, keep these conversations going, and they'll come a day
Yeah.
we won't need to talk about this again because we
Yeah.
would have solved it. Let's look forward to that day. I certainly do. Um,
Yes.
Brilliant. So just two final questions for you, Cassandra. I feel like you've probably answered one of these already, but what would you say was a bit of advice you wish you'd heard right at the beginning of your career? Yeah, what would you say? Yeah, what would you say was a bit of advice you wish you heard at the beginning of your career?
I feel like I'm still giving myself that.
I think we all are.
Well,
Yeah.
I think we are, like, it's a
Mm.
constant, like I spoke, I can't remember whether were recording that or not, but I spoke earlier about tall poppy syndrome here in New Zealand,
Okay.
and that, it's very prevalent. I think we can spend our whole lives wanting to be chosen and wanting to be, in this industry particularly, we want to be picked, and we wait for the part, or we wait for the thing, and uh, or we wait for approval and a validation from others or the industry to tell us that we are an actor, or we are, and like you said, and it's an awful thing in this industry that if you're working, you're considered an actor, but the minute you're not, it's like, oh, you're not an actor. Are you still an actor? It's all based on what you just did or what you were on, and so it's so building that resilience, I think, to just know who you are and know what you bring, um and 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 to know that you're the gift. It's not you putting on, it's not you going out there and going, I'm going to be Tessa. Tessa is in me, and it gets to come out, and it's still me, it's my body, it's my face, it's my everything, that, and my voice. So I think finding yourself in these characters versus thinking it's an outside-in job, and that's the beauty. Like, you're oh, how do I say that? But like, you're enough just as you are. Like, you're a human being, you're enough. If you can just be authentic to the story you're telling,
Mm.
that is what will resonate. And I think we spend so much time trying to pretend we're something we're not, whether that be a character or a version of us that society thinks is, well, I've got to look like this and I've got to sound like this and blah, blah, blah. But it's when you realize that you're actually, the gift is just you being yourself. And
Mm.
when we watch stuff, I don't know about you, but when we watch stuff, that's the stuff I'm drawn to. When people
Mm.
are just like,
Oh yeah.
actor, or is that just a person? They look like they just come off the street, like, and I think that's the beauty. And so that comes from just a radical self-acceptance of who you are. And but that also, and I'm not going to lie, that's also very vulnerable.
Mm.
It's very vulnerable to share. This play was really hard for me in terms of having to just put it all out there. I'm not going to lie, there was a part of me that wanted to play a version of it.
Mm.
And I learned very quickly that wasn't going to work. But it's vulnerable, but that's what connects people. And I think your vulnerability is your gift, you being yourself is your gift. And also, like, create your own opportunities. Like I said, I funded this show myself. I I begged for the rights. I wanted to tell this story. Yes, it felt bigger than me, but I also didn't give up. Like, it was I had my challenges, and I didn't know how on earth it was going to happen. I said to my husband, if I pull this off, wow. And
Mm.
to be on the other side of that and go, wow, you created that opportunity for yourself. And you've only got to look at, whatever levels in the industry, people are creating their own work, whether the big stars are creating their own work, there's whoever that, create your own stuff, write your own stuff,
Mm.
find things, and just, there's no linear path. I think your path will look very differently to somebody else's. And if you think it's got to look a certain way, you may miss the opportunities that are actually for you.
Mm.
Um, because we're like, no, hang on, it's got to look like I've got to go to Hollywood and I've got to do it this way. And that's the trajectory of this career. And it's like, well, what if this is, Yeah. So don't
And then
close your eyes, don't shut your vision off to the opportunities that come your way because you think it's got to look a certain way.
yeah, and then your cash and prizes by following your own path come, and then these things happen. You go, wait, that came from just following my own path, and you think all these luxuries are elsewhere, but no, it's very difficult, but you have to just go, just trust that you trust this, your heart and your gut, and your soul
Mm,
more than anything, and just go, yeah, this is what it's supposed to be. You put
yeah.
yourself in situations and you go, yeah, but I'm supposed to be here, but my body's going, no.
No,
no, no. It's like, no, you got to be over
and
here.
sometimes the body needs to be uncomfortable because we need
Mm,
to the amount of times I've made phone calls and the direct people I've asked to direct my shows are the
mm,
best in New Zealand, and I was like, I wanted to vomit calling them. I sat on the floor shaking when I first called. They sometimes it's not comfortable because we're stretching ourselves out of our comfort zone, but then we get what we want. But it's the old saying, nothing grows in the comfort zone. But you know, do the thing, ask the people, ask for help, and don't ever think that people are inaccessible because they're not. Like,
mm,
people have said, "Oh, how did you get Michael to direct this?" Or "How did you get Jennifer to direct the last one?" And I was like, I just asked them.
mm.
They're people. I asked them.
Yeah,
Even this, it's like, how did you get the rights? I just asked for them. Like and sometimes, sometimes it bites you in the butt. Sometimes people don't want to help you, and then
yeah,
that's, always a bit like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I'm
Sometimes it
not a
happens.
person
Yeah, yeah.
trying to like, find my way, and yeah. Um, but yeah, I think, but at the end, there's an amazing quote. I think it's William H. Murray or something. It's that commitment quote.
Mm,
And I don't want to butcher it, but it starts off something like, until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. But concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one fundamental truth, uh, that ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. And that is that the moment one commits, providence moves too. I've probably butchered it, but the message is, when we make a plan, like, life will move to support us, but sometimes we've got to plant the seed first,
mm,
and
mm,
that can be terrifying. We don't know how it's, and that's the problem in our world. We want to know how it's all going to work out, and we can't know. We can't
mm,
know in foresight. We can only see it in hindsight, and it does. Like, if I spin my camera around to you right now,
mm.
that is my schedule for the year of, like, venues, and that's on my bedroom wall. I'm not that was me going, okay, oh, how am I going to get to that venue and that venue? And I look at, from January to, I've got September up there, but that it's all scheduled out. And I remember from those early months not knowing how it was ever going to happen. And to sit here with you now and to be sharing this story feels very surreal.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm a big advocate of, like, do the thing. Do the thing, back yourself, believe in yourself, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it feels weird, and
Mm,
that's normal. You wouldn't be, it's just normal. It's normal to have growing pain.
yeah. And it's okay to be you. Simple as.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's all we want is you.
Yeah.
We don't want
Exactly.
a version of somebody else. We want
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. I tell you, this is prima facie linked actually, but one thing that I started this show sort of in our lockdown part three back in
Yeah.
2021. Yeah. Just happened completely by accident. Harry suggested we recorded our conversation about Harold Pinter, and it became this. And I thought, oh, let's, like you say, create your own work. It kept me busy and
Hmm.
just contact with people, and acting work. It comes, it goes, but this is constant. I'm always in the zone, which is really good, really helpful.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and I mentioned Georgia Bird earlier, the stage manager,
Yes.
and when sort of a moment where I thought, like, what, if I may say, you know, clearly you know, it's working, this podcast stuff. Secondly, like, I had no idea this was going to happen, and see, like, how on earth is this going to happen simply by just following my own curiosity and stuff. On Instagram, when sometimes you get notifications saying someone shared your story
Hmm.
or something like that. So, or one story mentions you and you think, and I just published George's episode on platforms and put it on Instagram. And I got this notification saying, "Oh, someone's shared your story," and I thought, "Oh, okay, that's nice. I mean, who is it?" And I opened up the notification, and it was Jodie.
It's come.
Yeah, and I thought, wait,
The world, the world is a lot closer than you think it is.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I checked the account 2 or 3 times to make sure it wasn't a dud, and because there's a lot
Yeah,
of fan accounts there, particularly for someone like her
yeah,
and other celebrities. But and I thought, what? And then I was just like, oh my God, and you have no idea who's listening or who's picking up stuff or what people will remember you. Some people, you might not see people for years, and yet they'll remember you just like that. And
mm,
but that was a
mm,
moment I thought, okay, okay. I remember thinking we're on the right path, we're on the right lines here. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and just
yeah. And
those
thank you,
people,
Jodie. Thank you, Jodie. It's amazing. It
yeah,
made my
amazing.
year, honestly.
Oh, she's amazing. But yeah, realizing that people are closer than you think they are. Like I think that
Mm,
that's the big misconception is if we've got all these people on pedestals,
mm.
and for good reason. They're amazing, and we respect them and we love their
Yeah,
work.
they
And
inspire us. Yeah,
I'll share a little story.
yeah. Go on.
When I went to see Prima Facie and on Broadway. Like I said, I'd seen the NT Live version, and I felt like I didn't need to see it again. But I literally flew there because I wanted to feel the audience. I wanted to feel what they felt, and just that live interaction of the show. And I did wait at the stage door for a little bit when she came out. Um, and I she came out. She was lovely with, but there were so many people. And I can't tell you that I had this, I can't believe I'm sharing this, but I had this, it was just this fire in my belly that was like, you will meet, not necessarily her, but you're not meant to be on this side of this. Do you know what I mean? It was like, you don't need to meet her this way. Like,
Okay.
meet her, meet her as a colleague or meet her as a, do you know what I'm trying to say? Like
Yeah.
I
So,
just felt just like, and not to undermine fans at all, like we love
oh
them,
yeah.
and I am,
Oh yeah. No,
and
no, no, not at
I,
all.
I, I you know, but I just felt this it was just this such a strong feeling to go, you'll meet her or your paths will cross in another way. You don't need to be standing here with these people that are so hungry to see her and desperate to see her, and I honor that. But I was like, you'll have your time, and it's not right here.
Mm,
And I walked away with just the most, and it's those moments of um and you get these little, whether it's an Instagram share or whatever it might be, we just get these little drops of these little nuggets of like a knowing, whatever they may be. And I think it's lovely to trust those. And I remember I think Bradley Cooper saying something like he asked a question on what was it inside the actor's studio,
mm.
at college, or he
Yeah.
asked a question, I think, to Robert De Niro, I think maybe.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I
And
remember. Yeah, I saw that.
he
Yeah.
asked a question and he said, Robert De Niro said something like, that was a good question. And Bradley Cooper said that one moment of just him saying that fueled him for years to come.
Mm,
Not he didn't meet him, he didn't, like, but it was just that moment of like, oh, he thought I asked a good question, and
mm,
that recognition of something. And like, so these little moments can fuel big, a big shifts in our lives, whether it's like, yeah, keep doing what you're doing, and
mm,
because your podcast is great, like you've got, you've got great people on here, and like you say, a beautiful thing that you're doing is you're learning through. I think, I get asked that a lot too. Like, how do you know, or how? I love talking. Clearly, we've been on here for hours, but I love talking to people, and I love asking questions. And so much of my rehearsal period with Prima Facie and HANNA was with these incredible directors, was just me asking them questions about their
mhm,
lives and their careers, and being curious of other people's lives. And because we can learn so much from it.
mm. Yeah. No, and
Uh,
it's a pleasure
and
listening to as well.
yeah, and the world is closer than you think. These,
Exactly.
people aren't far away. They're not, they're
No.
human. They're humans, and they are closer than we think.
Exactly.
Um, yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
I remember that Bradley Cooper story. Actually, I remember there's another interview. He said he was scared of actually asking the question. I think he was like that
Yeah.
close to saying, "No, I don't have a question. I don't have a question." And in fact, I think he said one question he was going to ask. Someone asked before him, and
Oh,
he thought, "Damn it!" And then he just thought, "Okay, just go for it. Just see what happens. Even if he shoots you down, you still got to ask Robert De Niro a question." And then he goes,
yeah.
he said the question. He went, "That's a good question." It was like,
Hmm.
you're like, oh, I mean,
And it fueled him for years. And so again, it's like he wasn't comfortable. He was scared. He was like
yeah,
nervous, and I think great things happen when we do are courageous in those things, and uh, and it happens in the story. Tessa's terrified to speak her truth, but
mm,
she does, even though her voice shakes, and it's definitely power in that, and yeah.
yeah. As she says, she holds her head up, and she does it,
Oh,
and she does. Cool. Yeah, and just say it's a pleasure listening. Yeah. Uh, to say no, it's been an absolute joy listening to you, Cassandra. I mean, I've still got so many more things left for you, and then I'm absolutely going to have you back for sure. But
yeah.
and one final question for today, which is the closing question for every guest. What's
Oh.
been, and you've probably answered this already, but what's been an experience or experiences you've had in your career up to now that you'll never ever forget?
Oh, look, I've answered them.
Yeah, yeah, I thought,
Just yeah, that connection with an audience, and seeing the impact of what we do, and the importance of it. It's such and I guess it links back to what I said earlier about it being quite a spiritual thing. We can get into acting for whatever reasons we do, but to have those experiences and to realize that that's what it's about, to make people feel less alone in the world.
hmm,
I mean, what a gift to get to to do that for one person, to do that for thousands of people.
hmm,
Whether you're in a little community theater doing a little show, or you're on Broadway, or you're, whoever you are, and whoever whatever platform you have, to tell a human story and to allow people to feel less alone and feel seen and heard is
hmm.
it's a saintly profession, I think.
It really is. Yeah.
Because healing takes place when we do that. We're all walking around trying to cover everything up. And when we get to share, it's it's powerful, and
Mm,
it's what we all need. We're living in an age where everyone's just become so ironically antisocial.
mm,
But we're starving for connection. We're starving to be seen. We're starving to feel less alone in the world. That's why we're addicted to these phones. It's why we're addicted to it all, because we're starving to not feel alone. But
mm.
ironically, that's something that's making us actually alone.
Yeah, it's the irony. Yeah.
Yeah. So keep telling stories, keep connecting with people, and yeah. And that's what these shows have done that, and
Yeah.
yeah, just solidified my respect for something, like you said earlier, that often gets misplaced as being a hobby.
It's not a
It's like
hobby. It
it's not a
changes.
hobby.
It's not a hobby. It changes the fucking world. It really
It
does.
does.
It
It
really,
does.
really does.
Mm.
And on that note, Cassandra, this has been unbelievable. Thank you so very,
Oh,
very much. This has been an absolute joy listening to you and your stories and to go even deeper with Prima Facie, because, I've talked about quite a bit on here, but to keep, again, like we say, but keep having these conversations about this and actually, if anyone who's listening or watching, I implore you to go and buy the book as well. Susie Miller's written a novel version of it, which I've read. It's almost like a Prima Facie extended edition. It's a really wonderful book. And if you want to delve more into Tessa's backstory and more things that Susie wanted to put in the play but couldn't because it would have been too long, yeah, read the book. It's fantastic.
yeah.
Check it out now. Yeah, Cassandra, thank you so much. This has been absolutely
Oh,
incredible. And
thank you for having me. What a lovely, lovely, lovely chat.
no,
Yeah.
this is fantastic. If you just hang on, we'll finish the recording and we'll have a little debrief afterwards. But yeah, wow, what fantastic, fantastic. No, I've learned so much. This has been fantastic. Guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. This has been the Uncensored Critic podcast, and I'll be back very, very soon. And yeah, wow, Cassandra, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.